an annoyance, I wanted to, before I start driving here, that's as good as we're going to get. I wanted to do this in landscape, but apparently my phone's not set up to do the live streaming in landscape mode, which I think's dumb. Anyways, quick car stream here. We'll go for a half hour or so. Wanted to talk about a few things. The border bill, haven't had a chance to talk about. And also wanted to talk a little about Ukraine. Now, spoiler alert, I will be doing a longer stream this evening. Time to be determined, but it'll be late in the evening after my son goes to bed, so 8 p.m., 9 p.m., around those times, and that'll be streamed here to YouTube as well as to my normal haunts, X, Twitch, etc. So you could look forward to that. It should be good. I have been working diligently, as always, and haven't had much of a time to stream. When I'm at work, I don't have much of an opportunity anymore to stream, so I wanted to try to make sure I'm being more consistent on the days off. Also, quick reminder, I will be streaming tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Ian Crossland's show. He is the co-host of Tim Pool's show. I think he's a really interesting guy, has a great show himself, so I'll be looking forward to doing his show. That will be tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. And again, I'll put out a little video suggesting that. Last brief update before we get to talking about what I wanted to talk about the border bill and Ukraine and all of that good stuff. I do apologize for the lack of output I've had with short form videos, and I'm going to try to correct that. I really need to hold my own feet to the fire and make sure that I'm putting out 4 or 5 short form videos a week. Now, what do I mean by short form? 3 to 5 minute max. I think that will allow me to talk to a different sort of audience and maybe encourage them to come into what I like doing best, which is the debates, the longer platforms, etc. So there's a lot to talk about with this border bill. There's things I wanted to talk about this week. Maybe we'll get into some more tonight. Thomas Massie doing a great job showing just how little people that claim that January 6th was an insurrection know or care about the pipe bomb, which is by far the most serious thing that occurred that day. That's worth talking about. A study I was reading, or statistics I was reading, showing that like in Illinois, in 57 schools in one particular district, no one has math proficiency, and we're spending like $40,000 per student in those schools. Those are all important stories, but obviously the biggest, the Mayorkas impeachment failure, obviously the biggest story of the week was the border bill, and I saw a lot of people weighing in on it. I was unable to really read the entirety of it. I was able to read sort of the sections that people were really highlighting, but because I was at work, it was difficult for me to find time to really get in depth in things. So I was unable to really delve in as much as I would like, and hopefully I get a chance to do that this week. We'll see but of what I read, there's enough to see in it that know that this is a terrible bill. And it was designed specifically by Republican leadership in the Senate to not only further achieve their agendas of sending money to Ukraine, sending money to Israel, sending money to every other foreign country, more so than we do to invest in the people of our own country, but also designed to pass the buck to blame populism and Trump. That's what the intent of this was. Understand, if you take one thing from this, it's this: that with all of the infighting between like DeSantis people and Trump people, the reason that I could go back and forth between those communities is there is enough similarities between the ideas and policies of the two that both are acceptable, if not perfect, for me to support. The bar for me supporting a politician, even though I rarely do it, is incredibly low. And that's because the majority of politicians, almost entirely in the Democratic Party, and the majority of those in the Republican Party are absolute garbage. They are horrible. They aren't just inept, they are actively advocating against things that would make the lives of the people in this country better. And so the threshold is I could support someone like Donald Trump, who I think has made a ton of mistakes. Comes out this week and's like, Bud Light's a great company. Terrible. Lot of terrible things. And yet, he still, I believe, is at least antithetical to the establishment institutions that seek to sort of run roughshod over the rights of people in this country. Through authoritarianism, through eroding our national identity and national borders, ushering in an era of globalism that you'll have less of a voice in. That's my belief. I talk about that a lot. So what exactly is in this bill? Like, let's get down to brass tacks. You've seen people saying, well, the Border Patrol supports it. Let's start there. The Border Patrol union head, Brandon Judd, came out and supports this. And the reason he gives that I've seen, I'm sure he's done interviews. By the way, it's a constant source of frustration. To me, that's actually important. Like, regardless of if you agree or disagree with the Border Patrol union and Brandon Judd, the guy that's running it, I actually want to see what he has to say. And yet, it's impossible to find like actual lengthy interviews where he sits down and there's people pushing back. In fact, almost every major issue we have in this country, there's never a serious debate on it. Ever. Even when there are like actual people that testify in front of Congress, the way it plays out is an absolute joke. Give me a second here. What's going on? What I'm doing is I'm at the Walmart grocery pickup, but my pickup's not until 1 o'clock. So I have a half hour to kill. It's a constant frustration of me though. Like, people just, I understand letting people out. Like, I have no problem with that, particularly elderly people that maybe, don't have the most mobility and stuff. So you pull up right next to the door to leave them out. But you gotta like give some sort of warning. Like, I feel like I'm getting brake checked. Every 3 seconds I go forward, someone stops and just parks in the middle of the, whatever, But anyways, back to what we're talking about. So anyways, for example, I know he did a lengthy interview with Harrison Faulkner. All I could get is a 30-second clip of it. But basically what I've seen that Brandon Judd says is he supports the bill because currently he's focused primarily on single adult men that come through. And currently there's basically catch and release. But he claims that this bill would mean that they would be able to detain those people. I'm not so sure that that's the case. The devil's in the details of these things, but let's assume that that's what the bill directly says, that these people will be detained and that somehow makes it different. Let's accept that. What would the reasons Brandon Judd have for supporting this? Well, one, could be that he likes that provision of the bill and thinks that it's the most important thing and feels that it'll be implemented in good faith and therefore it's beneficial to them. Second, it could be because his union personally stands to gain money, which it certainly does. I'm not saying that this means that he's corrupt and he's a sellout and we can't trust him. Anytime that there's something that maybe you're 50-50 on, it could be a tiebreaker that you financially, personally benefit through that. But let's assume he's operating in good faith. The problem with the bill is the things that it leads open to interpretation of Secretary Mayorkas and Joe Biden themselves. So everyone's talked about the 5,000 people and the continuous, I can't pronounce that word. In other words, people not counting that don't come from Mexico or Canada. My reading is that's not entirely true. I think that subsection is directly referring to unaccompanied minors. In other words, there's this limit of 4,000 or 5,000. There's some small differences in which one you would apply. 4,000 or 5,000 people, up to 5,000 can come to the border and it doesn't trigger the emergency order. Once you get past that 5,000 mark for 7 days in a row, then it triggers the emergency order. Well, how do we count those 5,000 people? Well, unaccompanied minors not from Mexico or Canada don't count. Now, my understanding is adults from, say, Guatemala would count. I hope I'm reading that correctly, and I need to delve in, but that's my understanding of it. Still, it doesn't matter. That's not going to help much. So think of it this way. What is this legislation? Let's just look at it like a dumb, normal person like me. Okay, this bill's passed. So what happens? Let's say 3,999 people cross the border today. What happens to them? What's different? Well, things that are different is they immediately get work papers. Okay, that's an incentive to encourage more illegal immigration. Instead of taking 10 years to process their asylum claim, we're now talking about processing it in up to 90 days, I believe, is one of the times that they've talked about 90 days or something to that effect. Okay, that sounds better, but that's not going to really help. For example, if they just accept all of those asylum claims, that wouldn't matter anyways. If the people don't show up to the asylum hearings, wouldn't matter. What happens if they don't show up? Well, then, or if they do show up and they're not granted asylum, I believe they aren't immediately deported. They actually then get to go through sort of an appeals process. If I wanted asylum and I came and I showed up to the asylum hearing and I wasn't granted it, do you think that I would show up to the next appeal where they might say, okay, it's time to go? Probably not. You'd probably just disappear. Also, wouldn't do anything to keep out the worst people. Again, this is something no one talks about. Even if 99% of people show up to their hearings, who do you think the 1% would be included that don't show up to their hearings? Maybe the actual terrorists? The people that seek to do harm? Do you think they're going to show up to the hearings? Of course not. Too late. You've already lost them. So there's questions of things like ankle monitors and things like that. The problem is, what happens when the people come and it triggers the 5,000, right? Now we've triggered the emergency order. Well, the first thing I noticed I thought was interesting, it doesn't say that we stop accepting asylum people. It says we still have to process up to 1,400 a day. That's step one. So, okay, we've declared it an emergency. The border's being overwhelmed. We still have to process 1,400. However, it has to be through land ports of entry. In other words, the actual places that you're supposed to go for asylum. If we already have the ability to shut down the places that aren't land ports of entry, why aren't we doing that now? Why not? What's the difference? Why do we need this 5,000 number to be triggered? How about we just secure the border and then say, you got to come to these points of entry. And if you don't, you're out. Simple. Why don't we do that anyways? Can anyone explain why we allow people to violate the process and the law until it reaches a certain number? Why are we obligated to still process at least 1,400 a day even after we declared an emergency? And at least is the key number. Who's to say they can't do 10,000 or they won't do 10,000? Then it does other things. It says that you're only allowed, and the number changes each year, it's only allowed to be an emergency like 200 something days year one, 180 days year two, 160 days. I'm screwing up the amount of days. But in other words, so if we see that emergency provision, if it's such an emergency that it lasts 200 days, well, sorry, we can no longer declare it an emergency, according to this law. What sense does that make? Then Biden's allowed to wave his hand and say, no, but that doesn't apply. Up to 45 days a year. So we could be getting overwhelmed at the border. Now, let's look at it this way. Biden and Mayorkas have told us for years that there's no border emergency. There's no border crisis. So why all of a sudden when we pass this bill, if 7,000 people a day, encounters a day, wasn't a border emergency in 2022, why would it be in 2024 just because this law passed? It's still up to the discretion of Mayorkas and Biden, who have already said they don't feel that number's an emergency. So why would it be any different this time around? You say, okay, but Biden can only do that for 45 days. Well, no, not really, because it also gives Mayorkas sole discretion to actually, without going to a court, declare that people have a legitimate asylum claim. Yes, you heard that right. The same guy who's allowed these open borders now without a court can say, yep, these people are all legitimate asylum candidates, send them all in. Now, let's say for a minute that the provisions about adult single men that come across, which, by the way, I have a question about that. What if they say I'm not a man? I haven't read the bill, but the way that the guy from the union, Brendan Judd, the Border Patrol union, he said, oh, when it comes to adult men, what if they say, no, I'm not a man? Or does it also apply to adult women? Just something I thought was interesting, because we don't know what a man is anymore, right? Who knows? Nonetheless, it has provisions for, unless there's an emergency, unless the people there are considered to be something for, some sort of emergency. Okay, so let's play this out. Let's say that tomorrow 15,000 people come to the border. This law is passed and 15,000 people come, right? And the law does say if it's more than 8,500 in a day, then these emergency provisions kick in. So the emergency provisions kick in. Now, all of a sudden, when we were told that walls don't work and we can't secure the border and blah, 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 now all of a sudden, somehow they're going to secure the border except the ports of entry. Then they're going to funnel everyone to those ports of entry. Okay, now we have big mass caravans standing outside the port. They're on the Mexico side. Tens of thousands of people. And another 10,000 come tomorrow. And another 10,000 come tomorrow. Now we have caravans of 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people. Do you think for a moment that the Biden administration isn't going to be like, oh, well, now it's an emergency. Now we have to let people in. It's a humanitarian crisis. You think for a second? They're going to show camera. Oh my God, look at these people. They'll be starving. We have to do something. It's an emergency now. They already gaslit you and told you that it's not Biden's fault that all these people are coming. It's because they're coming from areas that are an emergency. Sure, it makes it more strict to claim asylum. Now you have to do a little more than just claim, like, I was under threat of gang violence. But who's to say the Biden administration doesn't say global warming's an emergency and so it's causing all this strife and we have to let these people in because of global warming? This law allows for that. In other words, any provision that you see in this law that you're like, actually, I think that's a good thing. I think that increases a stricter border, gives more tools to the border control people. Okay, all of it's contingent on the Biden administration, including Biden himself and Mayorkas, having increased powers to unilaterally declare, no, we can let in whoever we want, as long as we say it's an emergency. Then if you want to challenge those sorts of rulings, traditionally, there's been courts in Florida and Texas that have ruled favorably for the people that want the stricter border. But no, this bill gets rid of all that. And it says only the D.C. courts, the same D.C. courts that would indict you and throw you in prison for absolutely nothing if you just happen to be a Trump voter, only they should have say in it. Oh, but it gets worse. It also gives billions of dollars to the NGOs that are the people that are facilitating all of these illegals coming in the first place. So we're rewarding the people that are causing the border crisis, enabling them to cause more of a crisis. Oh, but it gets worse. It also puts into it that we can't change this law for 3 years, meaning if somehow you overcome the corruption and we end up with a Republican president, House, and Senate, their hands would be tied to even change the border law. Now, all of this is irrelevant anyways because the current laws, of the INA 212F, it was adjudicated when it came to the, quote, Muslim ban, that was bullshit, it wasn't a Muslim ban, gives the president the executive authority to declare that there's an emergency at the border and shut down as much of the border as he wants. So Joe Biden could have done that for 4 years, and yet he told us it wasn't a border crisis. One second. Again, Biden's position is this. 2021, no border crisis. 2022, no border crisis. 2023, no border crisis. 2024, there's a border crisis. It's Trump's fault. So this is the Democrat mind. You ready? This is the Democrat mind. Trump leaves office. There's no border crisis. For 3 years, there's no border crisis. So Trump's there, no border crisis. Then Biden year 1, no crisis. Biden year 2, no crisis. Biden year 3, no crisis. Biden year 4, now there's a crisis, but it's the last guy's fault. So Trump's policies took 3 years, took a 3-year delay, and then caused a border crisis in 2024. That's what they're trying to gaslight the American people. And what's going on is they understand that even Democrats now, particularly people in minority communities, that always were the ones that were most immediately affected by illegal immigration, because many of these illegal immigrants are going into cities competing for low-skilled labor that happens to be a lot of people that are minorities in these cities. So they're the people that are being directly competed against. Now they're starting to realize, now that we've shipped out of, just these border cities and we're shipping them to places like New York, Chicago, all of a sudden people in the black community that our government should be working for and helping because they're actual citizens of this country, they realize that they're second class. Nope, sorry, we're going to take away your, facilities and give them to illegals. Nope, we're going to give free money to the illegals. Tough shit, people. Sorry. So it's becoming a big issue. So What does the Democrat, the establishment Republican, and the media do? Well, they tried to gaslight people for 3 years and say, it's not an issue. In fact, more than that. No, it's not an issue. No, illegal immigration is great. It's great. It's great. Well, now it's getting out of control. Here we go. These people never listen. 1 sec. Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Hey, my order is for 1. It's, Courtney?
All right, I will check if it's ready. Looks like we have that ready, so let's start getting it ready for you.
Okay, thanks so much. Never listen to me. The order's at 1. What? I get until 1. I got 15 minutes. Anyways, well, you're going to see a guy putting groceries in the back of my car here, whatever, as I'm ranting about the border. You think that it only happened to the black community first? You're kidding me, Rob. No, I didn't say it only happened to the black community. I said that that's the community in many of these cities that are most profoundly affected. Low-skilled city labor. Disproportionately black people. I am harassing. Oh, listen to this guy. I am harassing him. That's true, Go Rams. Generous Walmart employee. So now that they realize it's an issue, that it's out of the bag and they can't gaslight people anymore, they'll try to gaslight them in a different way. They'll say, well, of course it's a problem. And here's a bill that will solve it. Now remember, even though it wasn't the greatest bill, Republicans in the House patched forth what they called H.R. 2, which was something that was attempting to deal. The Senate didn't want to pick that up. Democrats, Joe Biden didn't say, oh, great, a bill that'll help with the border. Let's do that. Nope, they didn't do that. Instead, they said, here's our piece of shit bill. And if you don't like it, well, then you don't care about the border. And it's your fault now. Hey, can someone ban? Here, wait, I got him. There we go. No, I'm not gay, Alexander. I have a wife. Thank you so much for coming on to me, and have fun no longer commenting on my channel. Thanks. So, sorry that I had to ban someone there. Isn't it interesting how so many people come on and want to hit on you like that? Thanks, Alexander. You must have watched that documentary on Netflix, huh? The bill sucks. Now, you might say, well, something's better than nothing. The status quo sucks. The status quo has laws that require the president implementing those laws and courts forcing the president to implement those laws in order to secure the border. This new bill gives the president things that he likes and would require him and his administration to enforce the law instead of now having courts that wouldn't be in the bag for him, such as those in Texas and Florida. It says the only courts that can now look at this are the ones that are favorable to him in D.C., and it still requires his implementation. And it says that you can't remove or change the law for 3 years. So any perceived benefit, there's certainly benefit to the Democrats and to the establishment Republicans. Make no mistake, Mitch McConnell and company want open borders. They like the current border crisis because they want to erode national borders because they're globalists. They want to have a pliant economic base that will reliably vote for the open borders and not be nationalist in a good sense and care about the values of our Constitution in this country. That's what the Republicans want as well. They also want cheap labor for their corporate donors. Helps there as well. All good in the hood, as long as it's not in their communities. Don't send them to Martha's Vineyard. Don't send them to where all the wealthy people are. Don't do that. But yeah. They want the good housemaids. They want cheap labor. But again, this is a constant Democrat tactic. It's one of the things I said. If I was in office, I would do shit like this. I would take a bill. I would be like, oh, what's that? Democrats want free health care for everyone. Okay, free health care for everyone. We'll do that. Free health care for everyone and a free AR-15 to everyone. Plus, we'll send everyone in red states checks for $100,000. How's that? Sounds good, right? And they would say, no, that's shit. That's ridiculous. And I'd say, oh, you don't care about free health care. There you go. Republicans care about free health care and Democrats don't. See how that works? And of course, we have a media that would correctly point out, like, well, that's absurd. What are you talking about? But they'll gaslight people because the legacy media is literally just a propaganda arm at this point for our institutions and establishment government. Roman says, can you amplify a message I posted on a video touching on the topic of illegal immigration? I suppose it would matter what the message was. I don't know. Yeah, 50 viewers is nice. Thank you. I agree. So that's why this is put out. Now, make no mistake, the reason that Mitch McConnell is now backing up, it's not that he didn't like the bill. Hey, what's up?
How's it going?
Good, good.
Name on the order.
Courtney?
Thank you. Everything's picked on the very back here.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. It's not that he didn't like the bill. It's that he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. But the entire purpose of it is to pass the buck to blame populist type people in the House. That's the entire purpose of it. And so what you see is it's very similar to how Lindsey Graham comes out before the 2020 elections like, oh, by the way, like, let's get rid of all abortion. It's like, even if that's something that you believe, why would you throw a fireball like that in right before a national election? Something that you knew wasn't going to get passed. It was why would you do that? It's very similar here. They put this out there so that they could give cover, because the truth is, if you're someone that's in an establishment position in the Republican Party, like Mitch McConnell, and you're in charge, you're the group of donors and the politicians that are in charge of it, you're more concerned about people within your own party that are now overcoming your power than you are people of the other party. And the same's true of the Democratic Party. They are more, that's why they'll play with fire with Trump. They don't care. They want Trump to be the nominee because they think that they could take him down, right? Now, that's not exactly the best, but the point is, they really don't want someone like RFK. That threatens them more, right? Because that's someone that could channel energy to take down their establishment power in their own party, which would be bad. So that's why this is bad. The other thing that's funny is I think it's funny now listening to people from the top level, from Biden, the Mayorkas, all of the people in his administration. But then you can go on down to the people in the media, the Democrat politicians, and then you can go down to the people that I debate routinely, right? You could see them that have told me and told you, all of these groups of people, yeah, I'll check it out later, Roman. To see all these groups of people that had told you, Dodge Journey Imaginary, that told you that there wasn't a crisis. There's no crisis, there's no crisis, there's no crisis. Right? Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That's what they told you. There's no crisis. There's no crisis. Then they're out there the day of the bill. All these Democrats are like, there's no crisis. I talk about him a lot, but like someone like Pisco, right? I debated Pisco on this. He said, there's no crisis. There's no border crisis. We talked about shipping illegals to Martha's Vineyard. Remember his big take? See, there's enough resources for these poor border towns to handle thousands upon thousands of illegal migrants a year. There's enough. But Martha's Vineyard couldn't handle 50 people for 48 hours. Couldn't do it. They don't have the resources. He told you. That's what he told me. They don't have the resources. So that guy, right? Clearly happy with the border situation. Didn't think it was a crisis. Right? Now he's out there, and thousands just like him that had the same opinion. Now they're out there going, oh man, wow, this is such a tough border bill. Wow, I'm impressed at how strong wow, this bill really strengthens our border. I guess Republicans should accept it. It's so strong on the border. And they expect you to, oh man, Republicans own this now. We gave them everything they wanted. Man, that border, oh shucks, it's the same thing they did with Nikki Haley. Remember I was talking about this? Like you had the Krasensteins like, oh man, as Democrats, you know what scares us the most? If Nikki Haley was the nominee. Oh boy, we don't know what we'd do then. Man, if Republicans really want to screw us over, they'd nominate Nikki Haley. Man, if Republicans really want to stick it to us, they'd pass this border bill. Oh, man, then our hands would be tied, and that'd be it. That'd be all over for the Democratic Party, man. That would, like, totally seal up the border forever. Oh, man, shucks. I really hope Republicans are you listening? Oh, there are Republicans listening right now? Oh, shucks, man. Man, that stinks. They heard the secret on how to beat us forever. Oh, boy, what can we do, though? Oh, geez, oh, no. Oh boy, It's just laughable. It's absolutely fucking laughable. They told you for years there wasn't a crisis. And now they're saying, oh, it's your fault there's a crisis because you won't pass the bill that we want for the issue that we said wasn't a crisis that we were happy with. And they know it's just all about politics. It's nakedly just about politics. That's all it is. That's all this is about. They don't give two shits about the border. If you pass this bill, Biden would pretend to be strong on the border until exactly the day he won the election. And then it would be like, oh, but there's an emergency. So all these people seeking asylum deserve it. And the law says we're allowed to do that. And Republicans voted for it. So we're going to say that, yep, Mayorkas is allowed to give all these people asylum. And then the Border Patrol Union would go, hey, I didn't expect it to be used like that. I didn't realize if we pushed for a bill that gave provisions for the president and the secretary that have been, which the Border Patrol blames for intentionally allowing these people. I didn't know if we put a provision in there for them to intentionally enshrine into law that they're now intentionally to allow all these people even easier, that they would take advantage of it. How many years are Republicans going to get screwed on? Oh, she's turning left. I didn't see that. Oh, this guy's got a coffee cup on. You got a cup on your. Oh boy. The man has a cup on the top of his car and he doesn't see it. Womp womp. Oh crap. I gotta go through McDonald's. God. I'm gonna be in trouble. I promised my little man. He likes McDonald's cheeseburger plain. I gotta get that for him. So you're gonna run through McDonald's with me as well. Anyways. Remember the Reagan bill? Well, it's a compromise. Or the bill in the 60s? No. It won't massively change the racial makeup of the United States. It won't do that. Whoops, sorry, it did. The Reagan bill. If you just grant amnesty to these people, the bill will secure the border. So we give amnesty to the people here, but this one's sure, that there's not a porous border. And it did the exact opposite. How many times are we going to get bit in the ass when you can see that the law leaves open for a Democratic president to basically say anyone who wants to come can come, and only the Democrat courts in D.C. are allowed to rule on it? How many times are we going to fall for this same trap? They don't give a shit. And the whole plan is now they're going to try to gaslight America and say, oh, we put forth a bill that would have solved it all and Republicans didn't want it. And they're hoping that the average low-information voter will ignore the fact that these people intentionally caused the crisis, gaslit people and said it wasn't a crisis for 3 fucking years, and now are saying, but if you just give us everything we want, including funding for Ukraine and everything like that, then we'll pass a bill that will basically still give us the power to leave anyone in we want, which we've already been doing, but we promise we won't do it. We promise we'll secure the border. Bullshit. It's that simple. Now, I wanted to talk about Ukraine funding specifically. As bad as it's been to fund Ukraine and things are going exactly the way I said they would, there's another reason to not fund Ukraine now. Remember American citizen Gonzalo Lira? Remember him? You remember when Ukraine imprisoned him for spreading Russian propaganda in Ukraine? That's right. And what was Russian propaganda? Well, just basically talking shit on Ukraine and saying that Russia had the right to do what they were doing, etc. Remember that? I remember. And so they imprisoned him and then put him on house arrest, and then he tried to flee the country, which would have solved the problem. He would have no longer been in Ukraine spreading propaganda, i.e. critical of the Ukrainian government, if they would have just left him leave. But they didn't. Instead, they then imprisoned him, made him excommunicado, and then he died in prison. They should never get 1 cent of U.S. aid ever again until they're held accountable for killing a United States citizen. Now, when you put this message out there in places like Twitter, you can see just how vitriolic the people on the left are. They are happy that Gonzalo Lira died. He deserved to die because he disagreed with Ukraine about the war, because he spread Russian propaganda. Now, let's see how that would have looked for the left, say, after the Iraq war. Let's say the United States would have implemented that and said, oh, anyone who challenges our stance on the Iraq war, they're spreading Saddam Hussein's propaganda and therefore deserve to be killed. Deserve to be in prison. In fact, we don't even have to go back to Iraq. Anytime that I talked about the problems I had with the United States policy and NATO's policy, which I saw even before Russia invaded, I talked about how this was aggression towards Russia and there would eventually be consequences. And I was told over and over that, quote, that was me spreading Russian propaganda. So these people, if they're saying that Gonzalo Lira, they'd say, well, wouldn't you expect the same in our country? No, I would not expect the same in our country. And if there was a problem, then and the person is a citizen of another country, you deport him. You don't imprison him in conditions that result in his death. And then accept no accountability whatsoever. The United States let go, and I'm quoting again, the merchant of death to retrieve an American who happened to be a WNBA player because she broke the laws of Russia. Now that was an enemy country, and we were willing to give that country something that they very much wanted, that was very serious, a prisoner that they wanted, in order to return that American. And I defended attempting to bring Brittany Griner back home. I have debates proving it. So if we could make that sort of give to a hostile country, why can't we make demands from a country that is our ally, not only our ally, but basically our vassal state that's reliant on our money to survive at this point? Why couldn't we have made a call and said, that guy comes home today, or you don't get this money? Why didn't the Biden administration do that? They didn't care about that American because he was critical of Biden and of the U.S. policy in Ukraine. That's the fucking truth. And all of these monsters that are like, well, Gonzalo Lira had it coming, he deserved it. Fuck them. And make no mistake, if you criticize any of the wars that they are for, again, how many of them are for Ukraine but against Israel? Using their own interpretation, that would mean that anyone in Israel should be imprisoned and killed who says that they are against Palestinian genocide. I'll be right back.
Okay, so Donald, will you be using your mobile app?
No.
Can I have your order?
Can I have a cheeseburger Happy Meal with
Yes, we do.
Okay, with just pickles?
You can get only pickles on it.
That'd be great.
And you want dipping, I'm so sorry. You want extra fries or apple slices and what to drink?
Apple with an apple juice.
Anything else?
Yeah, can I get a number 2?
Your drink?
Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
And then can I just get a large Diet Coke?
Absolutely. Would you like anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, your total does equal $17.25. Please drive the first window.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
God, fast food, ridiculous. That's one meal, one Happy Meal and a soda, $18. Crazy. Thank God I worked a bajillion hours. Hello. How you doing today? Good, good. Just getting off work. Yeah.
Welcome to Donald's. Please start your order.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
You have a great day. Almost done here. My window does not work, so you can tell I'm not really made of money. That's the one problem I've had with this car. The window has never worked. I've probably spent $400 trying to fix this window. Yeah, everyone's always like, oh, because it's cold out. No, it has nothing to do with the ice or the snow or anything. Sorry, I know this isn't the most enthralling entertainment here on this stream. This is what it's like when you work so many hours, you don't get a chance to... But anyways, back to the issue at hand. How's that acceptable? How can we justify giving what the United States government, not my words, it doesn't matter what me or you think of the guy... What was the movie Lord of War was based on? The Merchant of Death. Doesn't matter what me and you think. Our government that did the policy said that they think this guy... Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Is a merchant of death and responsible for all these civilian casualties around the world. But we said it's worth it to bring back an American. It's worth it. Okay, agree or disagree, that's their policy. That's with an enemy. With an ally, it should be simple. Hey, can we have that guy back? He's a U.S. citizen. Nope. I also think it's funny, again, I can only deal with the people I deal with. I'm not going to get an opportunity to debate Joe Biden or to debate anyone high up in the Biden administration on the Ukraine policy. But I certainly talk to a lot of people that favor that policy, and I've had sort of discussions going back years with some of them. One of the people that actually went to the Ukraine is Dylan Burns, right? Dylan told me it's probably damn near a year and a half, if not 2 years ago. He says,
Did you get your drink?
we did, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too. Appreciate it. Oh boy, you got a problem here. They need to change their syrup in there. Anyways, he told me that the conflict was already over. Russia had already lost. That was over a year ago. It's over. Russia lost. I said, then why do we need to keep sending money? Well, so it could end sooner. But it's already over. Then about 6 months later, I debated Dylan because we were being told over and over by politicians in both parties in this country, if we don't fight them over there, we'll have to fight them in Europe. We'll have to send troops. I said, Dylan, you said that's bullshit. He said, well, when I said that the war was already over, what I meant was Russia could still hold on to large areas that they've already conquered. But what I meant was there's no real chance of them making it into Kiev or into Poland. They can't do it. Oh, they can't? No. Okay. So I see Dylan still posting quite frequently about Ukraine and the need to keep sending money. Why? The war's already over. Oh, here we go. Come on, man. FedEx guy just parked in the middle of the road, I guess. And yet I see people from the Biden administration, Chuck Schumer, on national television going, wow, they're going to get into NATO countries if we don't keep sending this money. Why isn't Dylan putting videos out going, actually, that's wrong. That's propaganda. That's actually wrong. Notice he never does that. And the truth is because he's been full of shit from the start, just like all of these pro-Ukrainian people have. Now, I don't care what side you take on this. Personally, I hope Ukraine wins today. I don't have any love for Russia or Putin. Even though I think the United States goaded and harassed Russia, I think that it didn't justify the invasion of Ukraine. Similarly, when Ron Paul was talking about disastrous U.S. Middle East policy that was benefiting Al-Qaeda and Islamic terrorism, that doesn't mean I don't blame Islamic terrorists that are out there doing horrendous things. But I also could look and see how the actions of the United States helped lead to it. Or if you want to put it domestically, if you're the type of guy that's running around with a Rolex, buying crack in the inner city in areas that you know are violent, and then someone mugs you, I still blame the mugger, but I also have to say, like, were you kind of egging this on? Were you making bad decisions that helped lead to it? You see how that works? That doesn't mean you don't blame the mugger. Same thing here. But the United States has lost all credibility. Ask the people of Afghanistan how our intervention worked out. Ask the people of Libya how our intervention worked out. See, the problem is everyone assumes that each situation's in a vacuum. And they assume that it's benevolent people in the United States. You might say, but I think Ukraine's great. I think they're awesome. I think Zelensky's the best. Okay, I disagree with you about Zelensky, but I'm sure the people of Ukraine are great. And I'm sure they've been jerked around for many years, being basically a puppet state of Russia or the United States. I do feel bad for the people of Ukraine. I feel terrible. It's why I didn't want this war to escalate, because I knew they would be the people most uniquely impacted. And they are. We're wiping out generations of young men in Ukraine. Sorry, I may lose you. So the uniparty that have engaged in these sort of actions over and over again, this nation building, they don't care about the people of Ukraine. They don't care at all. And they've been telling you two bullshit messages at the same time. That we need to constantly send money, but if you have questions about the money being misused or falling into the hands of Russia, don't worry about that. It's all the most secure ever, and Russia's already lost. How could those things be true simultaneously? Remember I debated Bastia, like, again, well over a year ago, and he said, yeah, I think we should send money. I said, okay, Bastia. He said, I think this amount will do it. I said, just curious, dude, When's the shutoff for you? Because we're going to be right back here 3 months from now saying, well, we got to send more billions. Or are you going to say, oh, I was wrong. These billions weren't enough. Now we need to send more billions. Because that's what's going to happen. It'll be never ending until the next conflict goes where they could do their money laundering bullshit. And by the end of it, Ukraine will be a steaming husk that will be left for Halliburton to rebuild. And that's exactly what's happening. Now they're freaking out because Tucker Carlson might be interviewing Putin. Is Tucker going to give a bunch of softball questions to Putin? Probably. Is Tucker the greatest journalist in the world when it comes to asking difficult questions? No. He could have asked Trump way more difficult questions in their interview they had. But Tucker is a mirror, and a necessary one, unfortunately, to the overwhelming amount of legacy media that we see that is overwhelmingly on the other side. Show me a legacy media person asking Biden difficult questions. Or Zelensky. Hell, if Tucker went to Ukraine and asked Zelensky tough questions, he'd probably get the Gonzalo Lira treatment. So once more, you see the mainstream media and the Democrats projecting themselves on others. They understand, and they make good arguments. I've talked about this before. When the press pats themselves on the back and says, we're the fourth estate, we hold truth to power, we're necessary for the average person to be informed against the powerful. They're right. It's just they don't do that. Instead of holding truth to power, they bury the truth for the powerful. But then as soon as someone on the equivalent does it to their enemies, oh, we can't have someone asking softball questions of Vladimir Putin like we ask of Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Zelensky and everyone else. They can't enact the same way we do. That'd be terrible. It's all bullshit. My country, the United States, is suffering greatly. To the extent that my government exists, it is to work for the citizens of this country. I don't give a shit your skin color. I don't even give a shit your sexual orientation. I don't care your religion. If you are a citizen of this country, the government is meant to work for you. Not the people of Ukraine, not the people of Israel, not the people of Taiwan. If the United States is ran by competent people that are taking care of the issues of the people in this country, and there's enough left over that they can competently help on world issues, so be it. But they're not taking care of the people in this country and helping world issues. They're making it worse almost every single time. And their double standard and their bad faith is blatant for anyone who just takes a cursory look. For example, you could throw a dart and hit a country that there are humanitarian disasters and strongmen, particularly in countries in the Middle East, in Africa, etc. Why is it that we're only interested in the ones that happen to geopolitically benefit the corporate interest in the military-industrial complex? Why weren't they going after Saudi Arabia when they were having human rights abuses and bombing places like Yemen? Hopefully this is it. I'm getting home soon anyway, so I don't care anymore. I just don't. Because the people, even if they make a true point, the people that are tasked with sending these resources aren't good people. They're not competent and they're not benevolent. If the cops in your town are crooked and half the people they arrest they're planting drugs on, and then they come to you and go, but Rob, we really need the cops to go to your neighbor's house because your neighbor's a really bad guy. I don't give a shit anymore. Sorry. I don't trust them. And you shouldn't either. Tucker should be interviewing Putin. Oh, but Putin's team said that the BBC and other places have reached out to him for an interview. Right. He's not going to take interviews from countries, from basically state-ran media propagandists that hate him. Biden doesn't. Is Biden sitting down with Tucker Carlson? Is Zelensky sitting down with Tucker Carlson? No, they won't. And by the way, the left's totally good with it. They would say, oh, well, Tucker's not a real journalist. He's a propagandist. Right. And that's how Putin correctly feels about CNN or the BBC or the New York Times. They're propagandists. He's absolutely right. I'm not saying that doesn't mean that Tucker isn't biased, and he is. He's biased. He has an agenda. He's not going to ask a bunch of hard-hitting questions, I guarantee it. Because in Tucker's heart, he believes two things. One, he believes that the United States and NATO aggressed and have painted Putin like this vile, inhuman monster for decades, which he's right about that. And second, he feels then that because the mainstream media doesn't act as proper media and they're propagandists that prop up the other side, that he's some sort of counterbalance. You could agree or disagree with that. In the best world, Tucker would ask him a bunch of hard-hitting questions, but he's not going to. If he tried to, Putin would say, end of interview. And you might say, well, that means Putin's weak. What, like every other world leader that'll only give interviews to their propagandists? Oh, here's my dog. All right, I'm home. I'll be streaming later tonight at time to be determined. Look for 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern, a time around then. If you can't catch that tonight, tomorrow around 1 p.m. Eastern, I will be streaming on Ian Crossland. He's the co-host of Tim Pool's show. I'll be streaming with him. So check out for that. Thank you so much, everyone. Sorry for the poor quality. I was on the phone. Like I said, we'll do more of these topics tonight. I'll be able to interact more with the audience. Thank you so much, everyone. As always, have a